Please take the Sandow Award, the Olympia Gold Medal, the check for $400,000, and the title of 2016 Mr. Olympia. His six-time Mr. Olympia.
There it is.
The gift.
Phil Heath makes it 6 in a row, tying Dorian Yates.
Hey guys, what you just saw was Phil Heath winning Olympia number 6, adding another Sandow to his past 5 consecutive victories. In this video, I'll be revisiting the top 5 at the 2015 Olympia, analyzing their physiques to a degree that determines whether or not the outcomes were fair. To do so, I'll be using a point system to judge, rewarding first place in each pose 1 point, second 2 points, and so on. Basically, your placing in the pose corresponds with the number of points you receive, and in the end, once all are tallied up, the competitor with the least points wins. I also want to point out that I use other images and video sources to judge this comparison, not only what you see on screen. This allows for a more nuanced look into the competition, so as not to have a singular view. Now, before the video does start, a like and sub would really be appreciated, as the channel is so close to hitting 20k. With that all being said, let's get into this video. Alright, before we do get into the comparison, I think that it would be unfair to not mention one of the coolest, most memorable aspects of this show, being the legendary Kevin Levrone comeback. I'm a big fan of Kevin, as big of a fan as the next guy, so seeing him return after a 13-year hiatus is something that not many people get to experience. Unfortunately, I was not there in person. However, seeing video footage of him replicating his classic posing routines was something that I'll never forget. Even more impressive was seeing him battle it out with the likes of Phil Heath, Dexter Jackson, and Big Ramy, with 2 different eras standing side by side. While Kevin didn't place as highly as many hoped, just watching him standing next to Phil was something else. They both share similar muscle bellies and physical characteristics in their prime, and it was impressive seeing a 50-plus-year-old Kevin hit that most muscular next to Phil. Probably one of the best comebacks in bodybuilding history, purely for the nostalgia and the legendary status of Kevin. Okay, getting to the meat and potatoes of this comparison, we have the first pose, the front double. Since there are so many competitors in this first call-out, I'll do a more brief yet just as detailed synopsis so as not to waste your time. Starting from left to right, you have Dexter Jackson, Sean Roden, Phil Heath, Big Ramy, and William Bonac. I'll put up their actual placings on screen for later reference. Starting with Dex, I'll tell you that his arms don't look nearly as imbalanced as in 2015 or later years after this Olympia, and his mass and fullness are spot on. He's detailed, streamlined, and bubbly, however, his quads are probably the worst in the call-out due to their underwhelming size. Sean looks absolutely perfect when it comes to posing. He also has the best quads in terms of genetic shape and potential, and easily he has the best flow. Unfortunately, his arms are the worst due to their unappealing shape and non-existent separation, and his midsection protrudes a bit. Phil has the best total arm package, not necessarily the best biceps or triceps, but the combination of mass, complete forearms, and dryness allow him to surpass the rest. His midsection and structure are the worst, however, his limbs and conditioning are probably the best. Ramy looks great from a silhouette view, as his arms and legs are the biggest and his taper is unbelievably good. However, he might just be the least detailed and a bit watery. Bonac looks great, especially in those arms and quads. However, his shorter stature and stubbier, compact look isn't the most appealing. Personally, I'd have Phil, Ramy, and Sean fighting for first. Ramy would take this pose if it wasn't for that watery condition, since that mass is unparalleled. A safe bet would probably be Phil or Sean, since Phil has the best muscularity and condition, while Sean beats him in the shape. I would pick Phil to be safe, however, Sean and him are interchangeable. Ramy ends up in a rather disappointing 3rd place, considering how crazy he looks apart from the missing detail. Dexter and Bonac are too short and lack mass, however, Dexter's shape is enough to get 4th, with Bonac in 5th. The front lat spread, like the front double, is an absolutely mind-blowing shot for Ramy, purely based on the outline that he carves and the space he takes up. Standing next to the narrow clavicle Phil, Ramy makes him look like an amateur in both size and structure. That said, Phil destroys everyone with that 3-dimensional muscle quality, along with the bubbly roundness and condition. Unfortunately, Phil's structure cannot stand on its own against Ramy or Sean, or even Dexter, leading to him fighting for fourth with Bonac. Bonac, while I do love him, is structurally disadvantaged. He's not super wide across the shoulders, his waist is wide, and his lats don't present that well. I'm not the biggest fan of this video footage though, so let's pull up a clearer picture to really see some intricate detail. So here you can really see what I mean with Phil and Bonac, since they are getting demolished structurally. I mean, both are dry in condition, don't get me wrong, maybe the best in that aspect as well. However, there is not a chance that they place higher than 4th or 5th. I'd go with Phil in 5th though, since Bonac is, at least a little bit prettier in the presentation and exudes more confidence. Then again, Phil does have superior lat coverage, better arms, better delts, and a fuller chest, so maybe I'd go with Phil in 4th and Bonac in 5th. Ramy, Dexter, and Sean are all good, however, Dexter seems to be the least impressive out of the 3. He lacks size in the upper body and doesn't have the best genetics downstairs either. He's diced and razor sharp like the blade always is, however, nothing about him stands out. Now, Sean and Ramy are extremely close since Sean, he looks statuesque and sliced and diced, all that, while Ramy is large yet not nearly as conditioned. I'm thinking that Sean would probably take this since he has such a pleasing look and looks more proportional and refined. Ramy's sheer mass is definitely enough to power to a 2nd place finish, however, if he was 5 or 10% more dialed in, he would definitely take this pose. I'll just get this out of the way right now. The side chest is a battle between Ramy and Phil, no questions asked. Nobody has the size, fullness, and mass of these two from the side, and they put a considerable amount of distance between the rest of the lineup. Ramy is known for having insane levels of side leg detail, even when he's not 100%, and here I'd say that he has deeper but not finer cuts than the rest of the competition. What is undisputable, though, is the fact that he has the largest side leg and chest, possibly a better delt than Phil, and solid detail. Phil has similar fullness in the chest, arms, and delts, a thinner skinned side leg, and a 3-dimensional effect to his muscles that Ramy lacks. There's no doubt that he's drier and more conditioned, so it comes down to a conditioning versus a mass battle. While it's a tough decision, Phil seems more complete and refined, especially in the posing, since I'm not a big fan of Ramy's squatted stance. Phil looks denser on a smaller frame, has some nice cuts in the midsection, and fullness for days. Super close though, with Phil 1st and Ramy 2nd. The rest of the lineup is pretty clear cut in terms of placings, with Sean taking 3rd due to his shredded side leg and surprisingly good upper body fullness, Bonac in 4th due to his better arms, delts, and chest than Dexter, and Dexter placing 5th because he's falling short in the arm, delt, and chest size. Dexter and Bonac could be switched though, since Bonac is not as aesthetic, however, Sean is in a solid 3rd place. The rear double is where Phil really excelled during his career, as all his flaws, such as his gut, narrow clavicles, or even his lack of height, never really mattered. Look at how he's killing everyone apart from Bonac in the density, pronunciation, and pop of that back. Bonac is really the only one that stands toe-to-toe with Phil, as his lower lat insertions, wider frame, and similar thickness are extremely impressive. Ramy looks shallow in the mid-back and lower lats, is soft in the hamstrings, and doesn't look nearly as freaky as he did previously. Sean has zero back to speak of compared to Phil, presenting a weak lower back and barely any width in the lats. He is shredded downstairs and is very complete there, however the total package doesn't hold up. Dexter looks very solid, having the 3rd best back easily. However, he isn't as dense as Phil or Bonac, nor is he as big in the legs. Although Dexter is significantly less muscled compared to Sean or Ramy, in terms of raw weight, he is the most completely developed and presents phenomenal conditioning. Definitely enough to place 3rd, with Ramy placing 4th and Sean going into 5th. Now, Bonac, he's a menace and a machine in this pose, similar to Phil when it comes to the way that he overcomes any genetic flaws and presents a world-class shot. I'm drawn in by those peaked and full biceps, thickly developed traps and wide lats, and dense tree trunk legs. This second picture shows you the difference between Phil and Bonac versus the rest of the competition. Look how shredded their glutes and hamstrings are, how thick their backs are, and how much size they pack onto their smaller frames. Phil does appear a bit denser in the delts, has more volume in the lower back, and is significantly drier and harder in the legs. However, Bonac is very thin-skinned, wide, and bubbly. The muscularity between the two are definitely neck and neck, I'd say. However, that grainy, incredibly dry skin texture of Phil is definitely enough to solidify a 1st place finish, with Bonac in a close 2nd. To save you all some time, I'm going to run through this pose rather quickly since it's basically the same story as the last pose, with only a few minor changes. Now, Phil and Bonac would definitely make up first and second once again, since we've seen that they are the best downstairs and have the most impressive backs. This still stands with there being a large disparity between the density and development of 1 and 2 versus 3 and 5. Third place is close, with Ramy now presenting incredible width that dwarfs almost everyone on stage. While he may not be as razor sharp as Dexter or Sean, his total size and mass are probably enough to overpower the other two, leading to a third place finish. The reasoning is similar to the front lat spread, since Ramy just takes up so much space on stage, taking your eyes away from any conditioning flaws that he has. That said, Dexter could definitely sneak into that third place spot, as his back has a more refined, finely developed quality that Ramy doesn't have. His lower body, while half the size, is twice as detailed, and he presents a very polished package. What is set in stone though is Sean in 5th place, as that back is amateur-esque compared to everyone else. Little to no lower back depth, lackluster width relative to his frame, and amazing legs that overshadow the main aspect of this pose. The side tricep has definitely seen better days for Phil, however he might still be dominating regardless. Sure, his midsection has been tighter, however, have you ever seen him so dry? Even his midsection, which is clearly the worst area, is detailed in the serratus and oblique region, and his abs are deeply separated. His side leg shows decent detail from what you can see, and his chest, delt, and arm are quite possibly the best in the picture. Ramy is definitely bigger in all these areas, apart from the tricep, which Phil wins with ease. While Ramy might be superhuman sized, his waist looks thick, his side leg doesn't look as thin-skinned, and his tricep is not the most defined. I definitely think he's doing enough to maybe get second or third, however Bonac to the right is extremely underrated. He's more conditioned than Ramy, has a better defined tricep, impressive fullness and thickness relative to his frame, and the most eye-catching posing. That trailing calf really adds an artistic touch, which is something that makes him stand out. Sean looks good as well, and he would convincingly win if it wasn't for that flat tricep. It's not as bad as it looked in other shows, however, he is genetically weak in this area. Dexter looks fine, however, his protruding waist throws off any chance of a win, making his waist look just as wide as the much larger Ramy. I'd probably have this one playing out with a first place for Phil, second for Ramy, third for Bonac, fourth for Sean, and fifth for Dexter. Ramy is a little too big for Bonac, but not as conditioned as Phil. Bonac could take second place, however, Ramy's size is just as eye-catching as Bonac's posing, and the tangible difference in size is what I feel like leads to a higher placing for Ramy. Oh man, where do I even begin? The ab and thigh really is not a phenomenal pose for anyone, which is surprising considering that we have Dexter and Sean. While the two are known for having stellar midsections at their best, Sean seems to have some bloating or something going on in his midsection, leading to his abs slightly protruding out. Dexter is even worse in that regard, having a, turtle shell for a midsection. Bonac and Phil are absolutely atrocious in this pose, with both being far, far in the back of this callout. I dislike the gut on Phil to the same degree that I'm not a fan of Bonac's non-existent abs. Now, what's really surprising is that both have great quads and lats, however their midsections are just flat out horrible. Ramy is sort of in a weird spot since when he's conditioned his quads come to life, and his midsection and taper are relatively good for a taller, more massive competitor. Here though, he looks soft in the midsection, has barely any separation in the quads, and looks like a blob of muscle. He absolutely embodies the saying quantity over quality, showcasing tons of muscle but lacking that refinement. Overall, this one plays out rather predictably, with Sean taking this pose since he has the least flaws, Dexter in second because he's, conditioned and alright I guess, Ramy in third because his shape and structure are better than Phil's and Bonac's, Phil in fourth since at least he has abs, and Bonac in fifth because what even is in that midsection, guys? I don't even know. The last pose, the most muscular, is thankfully a great pose for all 5 competitors. Look at how impressive they all look. I mean, Phil is so round and full and massive, Ramy is like a literal tank and as big as a house, Bonac is round and detailed with those huge arms, and Sean is razor sharp and aesthetic, and lastly, Dexter is really good all around. Phil is easily the most freaky and complete here, having the thickest chest, round delts, fullest arms, and absolutely huge legs. His midsection even looks decent, with his physique coming to life in this shot. Ramy looks big, fitting for his name, however he doesn't have those fine details in the chest, arms, or legs, leading to a rather watery, murky look. I don't think he does enough to beat a guy like Bonac, who has, those round muscle bellies, impeccably conditioned chest, arms, and quads, and virtually zero flaws. Ramy probably does enough to beat Dexter, though, who is like Bonac but not nearly as dense, especially in the arms and quads. Sean is right there too, however, his lack of tricep development is the only knock I can think of, which does hurt him a bit in this variation. For the placings, I'd go with Phil in first, Bonac second, Sean third, Ramy fourth, and Dexter in fifth. While Ramy is so large, and some of you may be, mad that I'm not having him winning this one, it would be a disservice to reward that mushy mess of muscle when others are sliced and diced to perfection. Even Dexter could place higher due to his razor-sharp shreds, however, he does give up lots of size. Alright guys, that's it for this video. To summarize the final placings, I had Phil winning with 14 points, Ramy in second with 23, Sean in third with 24, and Dexter in fourth with 27, and finally Bonac in fifth with 28 points. Some of you may be wondering if Ramy deserved to place higher in 2016. Due to the outcome of this video, and in my opinion, he could have placed above Dex. He was significantly larger, substantially larger at that, and was killer in the side shots and in the lat spreads, and he took up so much space on stage. I was a bit generous though with Ramy's placings in the comparison, I will admit that, with him probably placing third if you were to place him a spot lower in the most muscular, the rear lat spread, or the side tricep. I don't think he should have been second since Sean was significantly more polished in 6 out of the 8 poses, however that's just how the scoring ended up. You can see that there was only a 1-point difference between the two, meaning they were obviously close. Remember that I'm no expert though, however I do try my best to accurately assess the situation at hand to give an unbiased view of the video obviously. Now anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know if you agree or disagree with this outcome, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.